On the 24th of October 1944, we find USS SLATER DE 766 and her crew sailing from England, bound for New York City. SLATER has just completed her first convoy to England, arriving safely only days prior. Now, she and her fellow destroyer escorts were returning with over 30 merchant vessels in UC-42A. The escort commander is in USS Doran DD 634, and the convoy commodore is in SS Samaria. With a base course of 231 degrees true, SLATER is in patrolling station number 2, sailing at 15.5 knots. Just after noon, engine number 1 was shut down for about an hour to perform repairs. At 13:45, a fog began to set in, reducing visibility to about 3,000 yards. Apart from the normal steering casualty drills, a damage control drill was performed on this day. USS Kirkpatrick DE 318 left the formation to screen the Norwegian tanker SS Hegra, who was found to be dead in the water due to engine trouble. Kirkpatrick circled the tanker at a distance of 2,000 yards, and both ships were able to rejoin the convoy a few hours later. The next day, anti-aircraft practice was conducted, and 4 rounds of 3-inch and 31 rounds of 40mm were expended. The 26th was a normal sailing day as the SLATER boys continued to go through their daily drills. More anti-aircraft drills on the 27th, 6 rounds of 3-inch and 35 rounds of 40mm. USS Poole DE 151 was equipped with a high-frequency direction finding equipment, also known as Huff-Duff. This radio direction finder intercepted German U-boat radio signals. It did not decipher the message, but it did give a general direction of the source. On this day, Poole received a Huff-Duff transmission with a strength between 3 and 4, bearing 45 degrees relative. A second intercept was received an hour later with a relative bearing of 135 degrees, but nothing seems to have come from this. Little excitement was had on the 28th. The sea state was a little rough, causing the Hedgehog locker to break loose. All the projectiles were removed and the locker was refastened to the deck. Fortunately, nothing was armed at the time. At 1833, a green flare was spotted 180 degrees relative. No other comments on where that flare came from. In the early morning hours of the 29th, the seas increased in ferocity. The ship began to roll badly, according to the log. The number 2 engine was out of commission for 33 minutes this morning. At 03:35, USS Peterson DE 152 left formation to investigate a sonar contact. She returned about 2 hours later after classifying the contact as non-sub. The log mentions seeing a ship for the final time on the radar scope at 0540, just as the convoy began to enter a moderate gale. By 0915, the wind force had increased to an 8, just close to 50-foot waves. And the engine RPMs were reduced to 320. This was further reduced to 300 that afternoon, as the entire convoy slowed to 5 knots. Heavy seas and wind continued to batter the little tin can. And upon orders of the CTG, the sound gear was retracted into the ship to prevent damage. Heavy seas continued to break over the forecastle and the weather decks constantly as the sun set on the convoy. On the 30th, the barometer began to rise and the seas began to calm. The sound gear projector was lowered from the ship and SLATER's sonar men commenced listening. Convoy speed slowly increased as the weather calmed, and just after 1600, the number 3 engine was shut down to clean the oil filters. This took about 30 minutes to complete. And here's the updated map. When SLATER's convoy departed England, U-246 was located just off the southwestern coast of Ireland, approximately 160 miles north of SLATER. At the end of the day on the 24th, U-170 was about 150 miles south of SLATER and her convoy. And finally, on the 29th, U-1221 was about 240 miles north of the beloved destroyer escort.